Good morning, Michael.
I always like it when you smile right when you come in. You're just so happy and ready to go.
Well, yeah, I have the best co-host in the whole world.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I be happy?
There we go.
Well, yeah. I mean, for sure. So
Yeah.
I just asked you earlier how you're enjoying what is this, like the third winter or something?
Yeah, it's global warming.
Oh my gosh. I walked out this morning and went to take care of the animals and went, oh, well, this is good. I'm freezing. What happened? Yesterday I was sweating. Today I'm freezing. What's it going to be tomorrow? Apparently rain and cold. So who knows?
Yeah.
You know, it's like living in Oklahoma is just, it's a treat.
It is. It's the best. It's
a surprise. You never know what's happening.
That's right.
So any exciting things on your radar this morning?
Well, yeah, I love it that we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, multiple. I mean, you know how much I just absolutely love the green cult. I mean, I love EVs. I love alternative renewable energy. I mean, it's just the greatest thing ever, the biggest scam cult thing ever. You know, and as a biologist, Jenny, this is just, to me, it's all an attack on us, just like everything is, especially from the government. But none of it works, period, without government subsidy. None of it. I mean, the entire EV stuff, all the wind farm stuff, all of the renewable energy, none of those renewables work, period, without the government subsidy.
Hold on. Because I'm positive that the government is supposed to provide jobs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, we have this Constitution thing, but it's a living document, but we are supposed to provide jobs.
Yeah.
So, when you get down on the industrial environmentalism movement, you're just wringing out, the people who are just trying to find jobs. I mean, the government has to subsidize these jobs. We can't do things on our own, Michael. Come on.
Well, maybe you're right. Maybe we can't. Maybe we just have to depend on them to do everything for us, provide our food, give us money, give us retirement, do everything. But I grew up in the Panhandle. I'm a Panhandle boy. I'm from Texas County, Little Guyman. My dad ran National Beef Packers. I mean, I like to be free and independent. And I'm just going to stop right there. I don't want to say something that'll be used against me in a future campaign.
Well, it's too late now. There's way too much video.
But Jenni, look,
You're down there.
Here's how crazy these people are. I mean, you watch all this stuff in Congress, you know, they're talking all these green committees and all this stuff, you know, and I don't think people realize, I think people forget, actually, you're a biologist. I mean, carbon dioxide is a vital part of life on this planet, period. I mean, right? I mean, you're a biologist. I mean, it's part of the entire expiration, photosynthesis process, the entire process.
There are cycles. There's an oxygen cycle. There's a nitrogen cycle. There's a water cycle. That's how God invented the planet.
Yeah. But when we look at it, what they base everything on CO2, and all this renewable all goes towards CO2 and all the stuff. And, you know, I've already told you, you know, roll this way back, go back to the start of carbon credits and all that. You know where that originated? I think I've told you before. That originated with, oh God, what was the big oil company that?
Exxon?
No.
Enron.
They had the huge scandal. Enron started all the carbon credits themselves to control competition. That's where it started. But just fast forward to today, you know, what's the amount of CO2 that's even in the atmosphere? People don't even know. You ask that question to people, they're like, oh, it's 20%, 10%, blah, blah, blah. It's not even half of 1%. It's like 0.04%.
Well, and
that's how low it is.
The interesting and funny thing about this whole thing, frankly, is trees taking carbon dioxide, plants, fungi, all kinds of things, all kinds of green plants, single cellular organisms take in carbon dioxide and turn it into oxygen.
Yeah.
So if we actually taught the carbon cycle and the oxygen cycle in science in school like we used to, people would see through that and go, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So, let's bring on our... Do what?
Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, no, what were you going to say?
Well, I'm just going to say I'm so happy that there are people like the McCommas who have organized and are stopping, you know, who are highly educated on a lot of these processes and the harms. I mean, it's okay. So it's so good to think about, you know, it's so good. It's so green. It's so, you know, everything is so good. The story of it. Yeah. Okay. Well, look at the countries where it's the most prevalent. Look at Germany. I mean, Germany is an absolute, I mean, they're like 40% renewable. They are in their energy. They got the highest energy in Europe, literally. They have no sustainability. I mean, it was so bad these last couple winters, they're literally burning wood just to try to supplement. I mean, give me a break. So I'm glad people are standing up. I'm glad people have figured out a way to stop it locally, because that's where we've got to stop it. Is we have to stop it in local community, period.
Well, I want to show something before we bring our guests on this morning. So let me pull this in and let's watch this just a second. Because this absolutely... This is in Sweden, I believe, so she's Swiss. So that was what happened. The eagle was actually, you know, killed by the wind turbine. But you can see this other one. And I feel like it's important to show this just because of the fact that I don't think people really think about these things. So let me share this one other screen and let me show you this. And then we need to bring on our guests because I want to hear what they have to say. So.
But there's a catch. Well, I'm right there with you. I think there's much more downside than any kind of upside.
Hold on one second. I missed.
Fully operational.
Wow. Yeah, watch this.
Birds could die every year. Millions of birds could die every.
So basically, this bird got hit by the wind turbine.
It doesn't have to be this way.
So,
Sign the petition.
I mean, it's this. It all sounds well and good, and people can say, "Oh, this is green," and blah blah blah. But there are so many other issues going on. So I'm going to bring on our guests this morning. Good morning, our guests this morning.
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 How are you? How is everybody?
Great. Very
Okay,
good.
well, let's start with those of you on the right, my right. I don't know what that ends up being. What does that end up being? So Jeff and Robbie McCommas. Jeff, I have known you several years now, and Robbie, you and I have been Facebook friends forever. You actually ran for Senate in my district. You're in Lincoln County, but I'm in far northeastern Oklahoma County, so we bump up against each other. And you ran for state Senate, and I was so impressed by the way you just jumped in and went, hey, this is a problem, and I'm going to see if I can figure out a way to solve it, and I'm going to run. And I was just so impressed by that. And I have just been as equally impressed as what you guys have been doing in your county. So tell me, Jeff or Robbie, which one of you ever want to take this? What made your ears stand up about what was going on? What happened that made you guys jump in and say something's going on and we got to do something about it?
Go ahead.
Well, I think I can speak to that first. So, of course, this has been going on in other areas of our state, and we have good friends in Western Oklahoma who were unfortunately a victim of wind turbines that popped up around their house when the neighbors signed leases. So I've been close to those friends for about 10 years. So we had their experiences that they went through. And then when wind energy came to our area and said, we're going to have a community meeting, then the thing was, they pick and choose who they invite to those meetings. Well, there were.
Okay, so let me back up just a second. So this is a private, we all know they're subsidized by the government. So this is your taxpayers, our taxpayer dollars working for us. But this is a private company that puts up wind turbines, and they come into areas and talk directly to landowners. Is that what's happening?
Yes, apparently they're required to have a community meeting. So the end of February, they held a community meeting in an event center in Chandler. And so they invite some people within the project area. But they don't invite all of the people. Well, so our neighbors, Jeff and I's neighbors, got letters and invitations. So I wound up actually inviting myself. I did receive an RSVP because I knew the detriment because of what my friends in Western Oklahoma had gone through. So our neighbors kind of got together a little bit and said, you know what, maybe we could get names of people at that meeting and then kind of turn this around and have a subsequent meeting away from wind energy. And so I kind of took that to heart, and I showed up at the meeting with a clipboard, and the headline said Neighbors Unite. And I did get lots of signatures and information, contact information so that I could use later. Probably the most important thing there was show up at a meeting like that. And then when they showed the slides, and of course I had vetted it, what they said versus what my friend said was reality in Western Oklahoma.
Okay, so let me stop you there. So the wind turbine, check me if I'm wrong, the wind turbine group, whatever organization, comes in, only invites select people to the meeting, not the whole community, right? Only invites select people.
Correct.
then you're saying that it's like a propaganda piece. So they come in with all this propaganda about how much money they're going to get or how great it is for the environment, or
All the above. Yes.
okay.
And what I saw is they inflated the numbers because they said
Which numbers?
The value of the wind turbines going onto your property, how much
Uh-huh.
they were going to pay for it. And what our research has shown is that there's a huge scale, a slide of value in that. So when they come in on these community meetings, they're proposing and telling people they're going to get this. And then our research further shows us that in actuality, the cost or the price, the money you receive is way down here.
Really?
Yeah. So it's misleading because of their variables that they don't talk about, and what determines and their payout on these wind turbines. So.
That's very interesting. Can you give just one example? Because I mean, I'm curious. I would imagine that our viewers this morning are curious. What can you give an example of? Like, do they offer you, $800,000, but then you only get $20? Or I mean, what's the variable there?
At the meeting, they showed everyone slides, and they did have figures on the slides, but that was like at 4,000. All kinds of variables, because then there's prices per acre as well. But then from microphone, they kept saying at least 3 or 4 times, $30,000. Then they followed the 30,000 with variables, and they said that's per wind turbine. So the crowd left there thinking they're going to make a lot per wind turbine. But in reality, when you vet it with all those variables, the money is way down here. So it was confusing. It was super confusing. Even if you took the very best notes, you're going to leave there. You're going to have heard 30,000 over and over, and then try to figure out what those variables are.
And one of the things that the confusion caused is a lot of our neighbors were reaching out because Robbie was standing out in front and being kind of rejecting this, right? And she actually stood at the food line and asked people for their signatures. They asked her to leave. They chastised her and asked her to leave. And so I think that's very important that we talk about that, Jenni, because you have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to show up to these things. Like Robbie, she made herself, she invited herself there. She wasn't welcome there, but yet she still did her due diligence in a professional manner to bring light to this. But to what I was going to say about that is that we had lots of people call us, and they were so confused about the numbers. Some people thought it was 30,000 a month. Some people thought it was 30,000 a year. Some people thought it was 5,000 a month. I mean, everybody was just all over the board because it's just a bunch of smoke and mirrors and great sales and marketing. That there's no reality to it.
Well, I do want to back up to what you said, because it's so important. So Robbie, you are the sweetest, tiniest, prettiest little lady ever. And I imagine they did not see you coming.
No, and then at the end of their slideshow, they did take questions from the community and with a microphone. And so they did a few of those. And then I knew, basically, I prayed my way into where I was. I had other things to be doing, but here I sit at this meeting, knowing we need to protect. And as a matter of fact, I knew that individuals with this wind energy were exact same people that affected my friend in Western Oklahoma. Exact same people.
Okay.
So I had a feeling of protection. Now I need to protect our community, that they are not being told the truth right now. And so when they ask for, anyone to speak or questions from the community, so I'm like, okay, I have to speak. So, I did not ask a wind energy question. addressed the crowd saying, I do not have a question for wind energy. My comment is for you neighbors. When you sign, you will affect your neighbor. And here's my story from Western Oklahoma, because my friends in Western Oklahoma had to leave their family heritage farm.
No.
So because they all popped up right beside them. There was 4 of them right outside their house. So I just told the health implications and what it did to them, and they had to leave. And so I pressed upon our community that when you sign, you will affect your neighbor. And so I was, then the wind energy wanted the microphone back. And I told him, I'm not finished. Well, I went on. The only other thing I knew, because this was very early on, the only other thing I knew to say was that, okay, when wind energy is no longer viable, who's going to be responsible for the decommissioning? And so then the wind energy answered that by saying he will leave behind $160,000 per wind turbine. I'm not sure where it's left behind, but that's what he said. According to construction people, that wouldn't touch the decommissioning per wind.
That's what I've read.
Yeah, that won't even rent the crane that it takes to get them down, let alone the transport in and out and the disposal. It won't even come close.
So there were people at the meeting that, that did sign I had 2 pages of contacts and, their information. Some of these people do not live in the county. So then I said, then I'm worried, because if you don't live here, you might, would it hurt you to put a wind turbine? But about half and half. Half of the people that did not live in the area said, but we don't want them. But some you could tell did. And so I did. I spoke it. I said, you have land here and you are willing to put a turbine here, but you don't live here, but I do. So your decision will affect me. And
now, did you say that to the individuals directly, or did you say that when you had the mic at the program?
I said that to individuals directly when they would sign my paper.
All right. Now I'm gonna just hazard a guess here, but I don't see any black eyes or bruising. So when you actually did that, nobody assaulted you.
No, they didn't, but I didn't stop.
Okay, but hold on, wait 1 second. You're so adorable, I can't stand it. Okay, so here's the thing, and what I want to point out. So you were out, like Jeff said, you're out of your comfort zone, right?
Yes.
But I think part of the reason why people don't want to do things is because their comfort zone is really teeny tiny. I mean, they don't want controversy at all, right? I mean, they don't want people to look at them. It makes them nervous if people don't like them, that kind of thing. So if you look at the broader picture and you go back, I mean, obviously I love the fact that you said that you prayed before you went in, because, I do believe, we're going to get some help here with somebody who created nature to help us preserve nature. So, I love that. But where did the boldness come from for you to just kind of say, hey, I'm going to have a discussion with this person and I'm not going to let it bother me if they don't like it?
Well, I want to speak about that, because
okay,
what you said about Robbie being compassionate and passionate and sweet and adorable and all that, that is the truth. But she has a backbone of steel and she's not afraid. And so that in her, she's very professional and tactful with what she does in that. But her faith and her prayer life gives her the strength to confront, because this is a form of evil. When you have deception and lying and confusion, that is straight out of Satan's playbook. And I think that God give her the strength to be there and to talk about and to confront evil. That's what we're to do as Christians, is to confront evil. And she did that. And they did try to escort her out, not physically, but verbally out. And luckily there was a neighbor there that said, hey, hang on a minute. This is a public meeting. You invited the public. And so hang on there. And so they kind of turned it on them like that. But she was relentless. And I think that is a key here. You know, don't walk into battle half cocked. I mean, if you're going, go and go all in. And she is a fighter. So,
well, of course, I didn't know what I was getting into when I showed up. I just knew our area is going to need protection. And then it unfolded of what I experienced at the meeting. And so I was very disappointed that I felt all of our nice people here, all of our community are being lied to. And if I can see the difference, maybe I'm the only one. I don't know, but you have to think it's me. Okay, I have to do this. Yeah. You are compelled to do it. It was like God said, get up out of your chair, get that microphone and explain this. And then I was literally, my car was the last one in the parking lot. And I did feel defeated because you felt the presence of evil. And so I'm just like one name after another, one name. But then you thought, oh, that's too overwhelming. People are loving this idea of this money that's not real.
Okay, so let's stop there then. And let's go to the next step. So the first step was you went to this meeting that they called. It was a public meeting. You went, you stood up. You didn't say anything about the wind energy specifically. You didn't call anybody a name. You didn't scream. You didn't wear a t-shirt that said, you know, so you just said, hey, I want to tell you about what happened to my friend in Western Oklahoma when this happened. So you did that. You got all these signatures of people who were interested in stopping, right? Stopping it. Why did they sign up? Let's go there before we go to the next step. Why did they sign up?
My paper, the headline of my paper said Neighbors Unite.
Okay.
It was just because of what is coming to our area so that we can have a way to communicate of the effects of what's coming on.
Okay. So then after that, you made even another bigger step and you created your own meeting, didn't you?
Yes. After that, after speaking from a microphone like that, within the next day or two, people started calling me and saying, hey, what do we do next? What do we do next? So it kind of enveloped to a community meeting. And so from there, flyers were made. So we handed out flyers all over town. It was blasted all over Facebook. And so then I guess the next thing that happened was a news channel came to interview Jeff and I at our farm. So we got some more people from the area to be at that interview at our farm. And that aired. When it aired at 6 p.m. that night, then we had a Facebook page ready to go at 6 p.m. So we directed, here it is. It went live and it just kind of took off. Everything took off very quickly.
So then you had a public meeting.
Yes.
And there was 500 people there.
Yeah. So let's say that again. You guys created a public meeting and how many people showed up?
500 was, yeah. And there was different speakers that were bringing different topics like wildlife, health issues, water issues, livestock issues. And so there were speakers that got up and spoke in that. And we only had one elected official there. And it was a county level official.
They were all invited.
They were all invited.
Okay, so I'm sorry, we're going to have a little discussion about that. So you invited your representatives, your senators, because is it just in Lincoln County or are they going to Potawatomi too? And I haven't heard of any in the Eastern.
Well, what we know is that there's two wind farms in works. One of them is in northeastern part of Lincoln County, and the other one's in central part of Lincoln County, which basically if you're familiar with the area, from 177 east to Highway 18 and north all the way up towards Payne County. The other one is from Kendrick, Davenport area, all the way north to Cushing to butts up to the south end of that Cushing tank farm.
Wow.
So
that's a lot of area.
Right. And here's the crazy thing is that the one over on the northeastern part of the county, those guys have been in there since 2016 trying to sign leases, and we didn't know anything about it. The one in central part that we're in the target area of, they've been in here for a couple of years and no one knew anything about it. And it's hard for me to think that $1 billion deal is coming into your district and our legislators aren't aware of it.
Yeah.
But if they're not aware of it, then that gives me more concern about that, because then what are you doing? Right. So either way, it's bad in my opinion.
Yeah, that I know. Well, and I agree with you. That's not okay, because I found it interesting that as I've listened to you guys talk, one of the things that seems to propel itself forward more than anything is we haven't even talked about environmental impact here. We're just talking about people coming in and not telling the truth and being secretive and doing things that will affect an entire community without bringing an entire community together to deal with that. So would you say that's kind of the bottom line?
Yeah, and I want to back up a little bit, because you asked a question a while ago about what do the wind turbines actually pay? Okay, and so after the initial broadcast of the news where Robbie was referring to, where they come out to the place and we had neighbors there. So that night we were sitting and kind of trying to take all this in, seeing what the next step, what was the logical thing to do. And my phone rings, and I want to share this story because it's the most valid story that we can get. And what we have to understand here is when you sign a contract with these green energy companies, whether it be wind or solar, you sign an NDA, and you can't talk about your agreement with them.
Do you really?
Yes. And so that's why there's people that have these that are not happy, that are not speaking, because they're under an NDA and they will be sued. They are getting sued if they get out and talk about this. But saying all that, I'm sitting, Robbie and I are sitting, in our chairs like everybody's got, and about 9:30 that night, my phone rings and I look at it and it says International M on it, and for the caller ID. And so I don't know what that is. And I started not to answer it. And then I thought, well, here we go. They're going to call and they're going to start their bullying and their intimidation. And us, it's like, okay, well, let's get it on. And so
bring it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's not a good trade sometimes. So anyway, I answered the phone and I was very reserved because this individual was not doing that. And so through talking to him, it was a gentleman down in southwestern Oklahoma, and his way to get me to trust or listen to him was basically, he said, okay, let me tell you what they told you at this meeting. And he laid the whole platform out without me saying anything. He said, they're telling you they're going to give you 25 to 30,000 a windmill. They're telling you that they're going to create jobs. They're telling you that they're going to give all this money to your schools and boost your community. I mean, it was just verbatim, everything that they're saying. And then his question was this. He said, how much money do you think that we actually, the landowners down here, actually received per turbine for their lease agreement and installing these turbines? And I said, realistically, I'm going to say probably $3,500 to $4,000. And there's a big difference between $3,500 and $30,000. I mean,
yeah, a digit.
He goes, well, he said, to be honest with you, he said, in 3 years, we've received $80.
Wow.
Holy cow.
And I said,
He said they have been running for 3 years,
right,
and they had only received
see, $80 per wind turbine. And I said, well, okay, I understand that. And I thought he was talking about royalties off of it. And he goes, no, that's not royalties. We haven't received any royalty checks. That is what we're getting paid per turbine. And he said, and not only that, our property taxes are going up because we drink the Kool-Aid and we pass bond issues for our schools, and they have yet to give us any of that tax revenue that they were supposed to give us, and said it's going to be 10 years due to their formula before we receive that. Now the bonds are due, and our property taxes have to go up in order to cover the bonds. But here, this is one thing, Jenni, he told me that was just very enlightening.
That wasn't enlightening. That was pretty enlightening.
But this goes even bigger, right? And so we all understand that there's different power plants across the state they're designed to service a grid within the state, and they all hook together. We get that. And so what his comment was that, and he had very close friends that were into the management of the power plant down in southwestern Oklahoma. So this is where he got this information from. And he said, our utility bills are going up for this reason. He said, and I'll just make this simple. He said, okay, so these guys come in and put these wind turbines up. They sell this green energy across the board like a commodity. Fortune 500 companies that need carbon credit buy this energy because it is defined as green energy, so they receive the carbon credits. He said, so to make this simple, he said, I'll do this. He said, so they sell 10 kilowatts on the board. All right. He said, but half of these things don't run after 3 years. He said, so say they only are able to produce 3 kilowatts. He said, by federal subsidies to our power plants have to make up the other 7 kilowatts to cover the what they've sold.
Wow.
Right. And
you're paying twice for your electricity, right, basically. And
so he said, so the cost to generate that extra electricity is why our utility bills, because those guys don't pay back the power plants for producing that. And it's all based off of federal government subsidies and mandates that they have to do this.
So don't you love the fact that they screw you with your own tax dollars? Well, that's my favorite thing about America today. Just screw me with my own tax dollars. It's the same way in schools, but let's not get off onto that subject. Okay. So you had the meeting. That was super enlightening. So thank you so much, Jeff. So what happened at the end of the call?
Well, I asked him, I asked him, do you have wind turbines on your property? And he said, no. And I said, well, I need this story. I need you to come to Central Oklahoma and I need you to tell this story. And he said, I can't do that. And I said, well, tell me someone down there that can. He said, can't. They're under NDAs. And he said, and the fact is that none of us individually have the money to sue the green energy corporations because their pockets are so deep and they tie you up in litigation for years and years and they basically just break you. He said, but what I can tell you is that we're pulling together down here and trying to get a class action lawsuit going against them. But here's another thing I'll say about this. Now, we talked about the energy, now let's talk about job creation, right? And so I asked him that. I said, well, did it create jobs? And he goes, well, there's 3 guys that are here, and if you get out before daylight, you will find them, and they run the routes of these wind turbines. And he said they're picking up anywhere from 15 to 150 birds under each turbine per day, and that's the only thing that we see. And he said what we can't figure out is where they're disposing of the birds at. So that's the job creation.
Wow.
I feel terrible because I've been so invested in what you've been saying. We've had so many great comments that I should have been.
I was getting ready to start hitting those up.
Yeah, we'll do that. I'm going to you hit make sure you get those in there because I feel terrible. I've been so invested in your story. I'm like,
Yeah.
hasn't even been paying any attention.
Well, I like this one from Lisa. She says like a bad MLM. I'll go one step farther. This is just like the timeshare scams from the 80s and 90s. It's like the same people have just moved into green energy in these wind farms. I mean, what a bunch of jokers.
Well, so because I'm sad to say that I can understand what this guy that called you was talking about, because I'm convinced that where we are in the world today, if we don't find some people to get together and start pooling their funds and just sue people, I mean, our elected officials aren't doing anything to help us, and they're there to protect our liberty, not to write bills. And so we're just not getting that, getting anything accomplished. But before we get off onto that tactic, so did he say anything else in the call that's going to make me go insane like the last one?
Well, I think that one of the things that surprised me, he said now that on their energy bill down there, they have the opportunity to either at one rate pay normal, what we understand is normal electricity, or you could buy green energy. And the green energy actually costs more than the normal.
Yeah.
And so there goes the idea of it's a savings or it's a great thing. It's a Ponzi scheme is what it is.
Wow.
Yeah. And we're not, we haven't even talked about any of the environmental stuff other than the birds, but there's so much more. But
I'd like to hear, Jenni, I'd like to hear Robbie's the very first story that you told when you got the mic and talked to your people. I'd like to hear just the aspects of that story.
And what story are you referring to?
The very first one about your friends in Western Oklahoma. I'd like to just hear exactly what you said.
Okay, so they had lived, it was the family heritage farm, and she heard noise going on outside. She knows her neighbor. I mean, they talk. And so she looked out the window, and then she called her neighbor, and she's like, hey, what's going on? And she said, oh, I'm getting a wind turbine. And she said, well, couldn't you let me know? And well, they can't let each other know because of the NDA. And so,
wow.
And it was so close to my friend's house that my friend had to immediately go on the defense, talk to Wind Energy and say, hey, by law, that's too close to my house. And so they had to set it back a little bit, but it wasn't long that my friend had 4 wind turbines right outside their home. And so they have a bit of an acreage, not a big piece, but acreage, cattle arena, or a riding arena, and then cattle pens, etc. And life changed for them. And with health issues, including his heart, they had to leave. They were on Channel 9 several times, and their home was on Channel 9 News, where the house where
the flicker effect.
Yeah, the flicker was on there. And
now what's the flicker? Talk about that.
Okay, as the wind turbine moves and the sun is behind it, it creates a flicker inside the home, like you're standing at the light switch, turn it on and off, on and off, on and off. And then she said you could touch the bedroom wall on one wall, and as the turbine the blade would hit the ground, there was a vibration in her bedroom wall. And his health changed so dramatically. His heart doctor said, you have to move. So they did. They left. But of course, they took a decrease in their land value when they sold.
Right. They took a big hit. And then and the sad truth of it is then they moved further west out around Hydro, put together a ranch out there and built a beautiful home. And then the next thing they look up and it's right off Interstate 40, and across Interstate 40, here comes wind turbines. And they're actually building those turbines in a Altus flight training pad. And so that was one of the tactics that she used to reach out to people and say this. And she came and spoke at the meeting that we had that had 500 people there. So this is one of the stories she told, is that they had all kinds of cease and desist orders to stop the project. They would not respect it and didn't stop. And finally, the Air Force flew helicopters from Altus, landed on the construction site, and seized their pickups and their equipment. And that was the only thing that stopped them.
Wow.
And so
there's something about that seems so inherently just wrong that somebody,
it's like nefarious.
Yeah, I'm having such a hard time even.
Well, just the NDAs, you can't even tell your neighbor that you're even going to put one up. I mean, that is just incredible.
Well, and I think that should scare everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, but I do think it should scare everybody that these people can literally go to your neighbor, and then your neighbor, not knowing anything other than seeing cha-ching, cha-ching in their eyeballs like a cartoon, they put this thing up and then don't have to tell you what's going on. And that should, I think, frighten a lot of people.
Right. And here's one of the deceptions part of it too, that I think is
one of the deceptive parts.
Another one. And so this is something that people need to understand. Property owners need to understand. So when they get you to sign up, they're going to tell you, they're going to give you the windmill speech about if we put a windmill on your property, blah, blah, blah. Right. So this first project the first phase of this project that they're talking about in central Lincoln County, they're only talking about from 80 to 100 windmills. Well, what they're doing is that they go in and sell it, but you don't know if you're getting a windmill or not. Most likely, your percentage wise, you're not going to get a windmill. But the huge thing to this is access, because they're 612 foot tall. So the blades off, and none of our county roads can handle it. There's no way that you can make a corner on a mile section road with a 210 or 12 foot blade, right? So this is about access. And so they sell you and get you to sign the lease in belief that you're going to get a wind turbine. You're not going to get a wind turbine, and you're going to give away your access to your property. And unlike oil pipeline leases or oil field leases where they just take a section of your property, like 30 or 50 foot easement, these leases are from property line to property line. Wow. And they can do what they want in that property, and you can't stop them. I mean, their contracts are 21 pages long, and anyone that knows anything about contracts will get through maybe 1.5 pages of it and throw it down and go, that's the most confusing, ridiculous thing. There's no way I would sign that. And in the gist of it, Jenny, when you get down in the fine print, it'll say, and to my understanding, because it's so confusing, it's hard to, but basically as a landowner, if you sign the lease, you have 3 rights for your property at that point. It's peace, tranquility, and recreation. And they determine what that is.
Well, and I do think that's a really good point to bring up just in general, because we have so many laws that are being written, and the wording is just diffuse. It's almost meaningless. So what does peace mean to you? What does tranquility mean to you? Well, it may not mean the same thing to somebody else. So we have to stop. We have to recognize those terms and refute them immediately and say this term means absolutely nothing. It can mean something to you that it doesn't mean to me. I'm not willing to go any further unless we have a concrete term. So I think that's one thing, because that's the confusion, right? That's part of the confusion is terminology. So I'm going to say this right now. In any situation that you're dealing with, from healthcare to property rights, if you can't define specifically a word, and that word means legally the same thing to both parties, go run away with your hair on fire. Do not deal with any of that, because that's how these people get you. That's how so much of this stuff is done, it becomes the wording sounds good and it means nothing. So excellent points. Okay. So let's go back to the meeting. You had the meeting, 500 people showed up. I've been following a little bit. You have a Facebook page. Tell me what the name of the Facebook page is, please.
No wind turbines, Lincoln County.
No wind turbines, Lincoln County. So if you guys are interested in this, go look at the page and follow what they're doing. I don't know who you have doing the map, but I want you to talk a little bit about the organization, because that to me was amazing. I mean, you guys figured out how to do a map and map in landowners that were going to say no, or that you hadn't talked to. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I would have to give a praise to this community of people that have come together. There are dozens and dozens of workers. It is not what you see sitting here. It kind of just like went with, you just go. People just went with it. And so this woman got a great big map. And so she started, filling in with red if the no's. And it just kept going and going until we have a lot of red in this area. And so it kind of helps us to know where that we need to work on next. And so actually that map is on the Facebook page, and you can message her or just put it right there in the comments that says this name, because their names are on the properties on the map. Everyone's name is noted on this map. So you just comment and say McCommas is a no, and then she'll go fill it in red. So it's been a great campaign to do that, because it looks promising. It gives you hope, and it like right now I can.
Well, it organizes you.
Yeah, it did. There's been so many helpers, so many workers.
And one of the reasons that the map is so efficient is because one of their tactics is that, well, your neighbor's going to do it, you got to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
And then you get to go, oh yeah,
Right. So it takes another level of their deception away.
well, and again, I want to point out, and we haven't really done that, and I don't want to go too much further other than this, but so many things are affecting us as landowners right now. We have the biosolids, the human manure that gets dumped out here, and our friend Sandra Trawick is going to come on next week and talk to us a little bit about that, which is causes huge effects on property. We have the wind turbines. We have solar panels. And I don't know if Neanne is watching this morning. If you are, bless your heart, Neanne. But Neanne Clinton and Enid, they have a huge solar farm that they want to put in out there. And there are a group of Enid residents that are coming together to fight that solar farm. And, it sounds like, oh, well, we're not with the green agenda, and we're just awful people. And here's the thing. City dwellers have no idea what those of us that own property and raise animals deal with. I mean, they have no idea. But the worst part about it is they're getting fed off of our backs. So they get their meat, they get their grain, they get whatever off of us. But then to them, they're all into this, green energy stuff. They have no idea how it's affecting the environment. And it is all based upon deception. And they'll tell you it's one thing when those of us who are dealing with it can tell you it's not that at all. So that's going to be my one little soapbox moment. And then I'm going to get off, and I'm going to ask you this. Who is with you today?
All right. Thank you for that. This is Jim and Dana Shaw. They're here with us today. And I will say this. Anyone that followed me and Robbie in my campaign, and you valued our principles and what we were doing, I'm going to ask you to get behind this man right here. His name is Jim Shaw. He's running for a House of Representative in District 32 seat. And he is everything that we were. They both are. They're Christian. They're family. They got two beautiful girls, professional, everything about them. And we need them. And I will let him speak on his behalf of what his campaign is looking like. But just know that if you was for us and believed in us, then believe in him. Because I've spent many, many hours vetting this person, And trust me when I say I'm behind this man and he's got my 100% endorsement.
So, Jim, very nice to meet you. Same with you, Dana. Very nice to meet you. So, Jim, give me a rundown. Give me a rundown on the Constitution in 60 seconds. I'm just kidding.
Here we go.
So tell me what kind of catapulted you into, I mean, you're a young guy. I mean, what catapulted you into deciding that this was something that you were going to do, was run for office?
So, I mean, obviously the topic that we've been talking about this morning, you know, is kind of the last straw, if you will. You know, Dan and I moved out here with our girls about 3 years ago, and, you know, wanted to get out here to the country, raise our girls in this kind of environment. You know, we've set roots down here, and we're extremely blessed to be out here. But over the years that we've been here, getting to know people in our community, our neighbors, church family that we become a part of, you know, we've been confronted and have realized that there are many issues, some of which you touched on, Jenni, just a minute ago, you know, that we feel like aren't getting the attention that they deserve. And especially now, you know, with this wind farm and the threat that it brings to our community and all of the landowners out here, that honestly was a pretty big tipping point, you know, and I feel absolutely led and called from the Lord to do this. And that's ultimately what it boils down to. And so I'm looking forward to running and earning everybody's support. So.
If you had one thing to say about, and let's just stick with Oklahoma, because I'll be frank, I don't really care one whit about what's going on at the federal level. I mean, we send people up there and they do whatever they want. So my thought has always been concentrate locally, because you're a fact locally. What's under your feet is what you can affect the most, right?
Right.
And I mean, so what do you think? And it's hard. I mean, this is a terrible question. I hate to ask you this question, so just give me a little latitude here. But with everything that's going on, what do you see as probably the worst thing, the thing that we are bound most to kind of attack, if you will, that's happening to us right now?
I mean, I think what it boils down to, I mean, a huge portion of our platform is preserving the land, the livelihoods, and the legacies of all of our neighbors, right? And I think you can take any one of these issues that we've talked about, and we can focus on that, and we can talk at length about each one, but all of them collectively are putting the land, the livelihoods, and legacies of us and all of our folks here in Lincoln County and District 32 at risk. And so that, to me, is what it boils down to.
Okay, we need to repeat that again. We just had a comment. Can you repeat the House district number that he's running for and give the general location?
District 32. So it's all of Lincoln County, and then a little bit of Payne to the north and a little bit of Logan to the northwest.
And who are you running against?
So Kevin Wallace is the incumbent, and there's another gentleman, Jason Schilling, out of Perkins, that's also running. So there's three of us.
Okay. Because I feel like people don't understand this, and Michael and I harp on this all the time. We don't own our own property. I mean, and how many people have you talked to me? That's almost the first thing I want to say anymore to anybody. And I don't care if you live in the middle of the city, in the middle of downtown. I don't care. You don't own your own property. You may have a bill of sale, but it doesn't mean squat, because what happens if you don't pay your taxes?
Right. Right.
They just come seize your property, put it up. DACL puts it up along with all of the OTA extra land. Puts it up on auction, and then just, offs it and gets rid of it. Right.
Right.
So how did you own that then, if the state can come in and take it away from you?
Right.
So I do think probably the biggest, I'm really excited to hear you talk about land, because not everybody owns land that they run animals on or feed people with. I get that. But your property is still your property. And if you paid for it once, it should continue to be your property. And property rights were it is considered to be the bedrock of a functional society. Your ability to own property that's where everything else is built off. I have this, I own this. Like Jeff, you have a construction company, right?
Right.
Your ability to own that property that that houses your construction company is the bedrock of your business, right?
Right.
And then you help other people with that. So it is a huge issue, and I'm so happy to hear you say that. But what is something else too that's really on your mind that you feel like people ought to know about, or you're interested in and kind of taking on as a representative for the state?
I mean, ultimately, it sounds really simple and cliche, but I mean, I like showing up to work every day and doing my job. And if that's what I'm called to do, and if I'm supposed to be at the Capitol and doing my job, I mean, maybe showing up and simply doing that is an abnormal thing compared to some. So I'm looking forward to. I mean, I've been in the private sector for 20 years in oil and gas. And the last 12 has been in software, but related to oil and gas. And so I'm not shy of hard work and knowing what I'm supposed to do every single day. And if that's representing our community and everybody here, I mean, I would be honored to do that. And ultimately bringing more of a conservative, Christ-like and servant-oriented, leadership to the Oklahoma House. That's ultimately what I'm.
Wait, do you mean to say that elected representatives are supposed to serve the public and not their donors?
I mean, that's the rumor, right?
It is. Thank you for clearing that up.
And don't forget, Jenni, our number one thing, they're elected to protect our liberty, not to go write a bunch of laws. They're elected to go protect our rights, our liberty.
That's right.
Well, guys, we're getting a little over, but before we get off, what I really want to talk about one more time is this. Robbie, you said it, but I'm going to start like this. So you initially found out that this was going on. You weren't invited to this meeting, but you said it's a public meeting. I'm a member of the public that I'm going to go. But then beyond even that, when they opened up the mic, you said, okay, choose me. Let me tell you something. And then you began to tell them a story. Beyond that, you had a clipboard. You took names of people who were there. You went back later on, contacted these people. They contacted you. You started a group. You said something a minute ago when I said, talk to me about the map. You said so many people have gotten involved in doing this. So many people say many of the same things. So Michael, hit me up when I miss one. They say, I don't know where to start. Right?
Yep.
I don't know what to do. I can't be the only person doing this. And these are those the top three reasons, would you say, Michael?
That's probably the top three.
Okay. And this is why they tell us they can't get involved. So I want you to kind of just touch a little bit, kind of wrap up what you've been talking about by touching on those three areas. You, Robbie McCommas, you, Jeff McCommas, you, Jim Shaw, saying, okay, here I am. This is happening. I am going to do this. What kind of advice can you give the people who are watching? And not only just the advice, but the encouragement that, hey, look what we're doing here. You can do something similar. Just wrap us up.
I would say that you just have to put yourself out there. Go a Facebook Live. Go to the meetings. Go to the city council. Go to commissioners meeting. Respectfully make noise, but bring the problem to every official that you know of. And what I saw at Chandler City Council, they are making a subcommittee to present to their council of no wind turbines. So they're going to regulate within their city. Okay, so if Chandler can do it, let's have the rest of the cities do it within this project area. So then we have more noise because we sit at the city council and they say, hold on, what are you talking about? We didn't know there was wind turbines coming. So it's bringing awareness. The Facebook Live it's just a heartfelt, hey, this is an issue. This is my farm. I don't want to see this happen. This happened to my friend in Western Oklahoma. And boom, it was shared over 30 times. So you didn't know. You just come with your heart. You pray and you come with your heart. And that's where it was led to. It's like, we have to protect our land, protect our water, protect our livelihoods, protect the values of our land. And it's at risk. It's at risk right now. And it's like, to me, it was like we have no elected officials that are helping in this. I thought they were supposed to protect, but we are having to do that ourselves. And so if you're going to have to do that yourself, get out there. And it's like, if it is to be, it's up to me, that, little cliche, that's where the start is. But then so many people have joined that fight, and they're fighting in their little area, in their little town, or, so all over this project area, there are workers out there.
It reminds me of Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come.
Everyone has a place in this to help.
For sure.
Right.
It's not going to come down to one person.
And I think this is important for your listeners to understand is that there has to be a structure of organization to be successful. Okay. And it's hard because the more you make each person aware, then they start at ground zero and they're trying to build up to what they're doing. So as you grow in your organization and you come in, and this is a suggestion to people, get with the people that already know, that's already been down here, that's done the research. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Get with them, understand what they've already discovered. If everyone has a talent area, and stay within your lane and stay organized and move together. Don't try to reinvent the wheel and that's what happens. If somebody makes, we've been into this for several months now, then a person realizes, oh, I just found out about it. Don't waste your time trying to reinvent the wheel. Go get involved, make your phone calls, do that, and get educated on what's already been done in the community, and then find your area of talent and get in that lane and go,
So
important.
You know what it sounds like to me, and we all need to find our humility. We all can't be the head of the tip of the spear. That's not God's plan for all of us. Some of us get called, like those of us on this program. You get called and you go out and you do what you do. But if there's somebody out there that's doing what you do, back up and help them. You don't have to be the tip of the spear. Let's all have some humility, because really humility it's the only thing that allows for us to come together as a community to get things done, is to love one another, like Jesus said, and have that humility to work together as a group. So I think that's excellent advice.
There's one other thing I want to touch on here, if we've got time, Jenny, is that so I'll just say this. We had one meeting that had 500 people at it, right? Then we had a county commissioners meeting that had over 100 people. Then we had another county commissioners meeting that had over 200. We had another event this week, Tuesday night. There was over 100 people there. And these are you see a lot of the same faces, but every meeting you see someone different, right?
Oh, interesting.
So it's spreading. But one of the things that I think has helped us a lot was after one of the county commissioner meetings, Jake Keys of the Iowa tribe stood up and said, guys, we're here. We're here with you to the end of this fight. And so a core group of us reached out to Jake, and we've met with Jake, and they have a Eagle aviary over around on the northern part of Lincoln County on their tribal property. And one of the things that they said, so they rehabilitate eagles and different birds, and a high percentage of the birds that they get in there to rehabilitate is damage from wind turbines, eagles. And so, when we look at eagles and we think that, oh, that's Alaska or that's this, or, we see Montana and all that. Well, just the other morning, Robbie and I were drinking our coffee and having our normal wind turbine conversation, because that's consumed our life. And I look out the window and a bald eagle flies over right out of our window, like treetop level. And I said, Robbie, look at this. And so we were fascinated with that, and we see them. I see them out a lot in what I do. And so they are here, and there's huge environmental impacts of this. And I would like to say this, to sum this up, in my view, this is nothing but a transfer of wealth from our middle class taxpayers to the elite. And it's a land grab. So if your land means anything to you, understand what's going on. Look at the bigger picture, because as everyone says, if it wasn't for the subsidies, this wouldn't happen. And I will say this, the wind turbine thing is a piece of the pie to this Ponzi scheme. The solar is another piece of pie. The human ear is another piece of the pie. If you start looking at this is about transfer of wealth. And our government has turned into a business model for private sectors to take our tax dollars, put it back into the private sectors to supply a few with wealth. And when we get that, and we understand that, and we understand that our dollars being taxed at over 50% by the time we make it and spend it, why are we giving our tax dollars to these people that are lining their pockets with it? Whether it's through lobbyists, through campaign contributions, foundations. I mean, come on, guys, wake up, right? And I know,
Well,
Jenni,
shall we
soapbox, Jeff, but
shall we point out the fact that you had no elected representation at any of these meetings?
Yeah. That's
they have showed up to the legislative breakfasts, and all of their view is neutral, that they can't do anything because it's a personal property rights.
Yeah. Well, and I'd like to add one thing on that, on top of everything you just said, Jeff. I think people need to understand there in that larger picture, that larger aspect. I mean, there's security issues here. There's sovereignty issues. You've got independent companies, private companies plugging into our grid. These companies can be owned by foreign nationals. They can be owned by anybody. You don't know 10 years from now, this, let's say some local people or some local company that you may know, puts up some windmills or whatever. You don't know 5 or 10 years from now if they sell those to a Chinese national or some player that's a bad actor. I mean, that's
already been determined. Right. That's already been determined. If you follow the money on this, you'll see that what goes on, like at the stage we're in now, are developers. Okay. So they come in and develop it. Then they sell it to another company. Usually by the third time that it sells, because each one of them sucking in these subsidies, by the time it sells to a foreign company. Most of them are European, third world countries. And so I believe that just like everything else we look, that's when the money comes back back to the states, into these foundations and stuff for our elected officials. Wake up. It's happening. And Oh,
no, I was just waiting for you to go on. I mean, Jim looks like he's ready to jump onto the bandwagon too. I mean, I
feel like we're treated as peasants. We're the landowners, but we have no say. We're going to go out here. We're going to target your area. We're going to trick your neighbors, and you can't do anything about it.
Well, I do believe that we're looked at as rubes. I mean, we deal with sheep or cattle all day. I mean, what do we know? We can't be that smart, right? I mean, I do believe that they somehow think that those of us who live out on property and do farming even if it's, like we don't do it, like you guys do it. I mean, we're just a little, hobby farm. I mean, that's all we are. But the point of the matter is we still grow our own food, it's been said that will own nothing and learn to love it. But I think people don't understand what that looks like. And what you just described, Jeff, is how that ends up happening. They get property rights, and this can be done. And let me point out, because we're talking about farms here, because that's where we all live. We live out in the country. And that's what we're talking about here. But that doesn't mean it can't happen to people in the city. You look what's going on at the OTA and our friends at Pikeoff OTA. They're fighting for the rights of property owners who have had, and that's happened to us with the Kickapoo Turnpike out here. They just take your property, they get rid of it to do their own thing, and we've got to stop this. It's because I can't. I'm gonna get aggravated and have a stroke again.
Well, here's something that kind of defines it. I mean, and everybody knows this: follow the money, right?
Yeah.
And so when your elected officials stand up and tell you that it's only a personal property rights and they can't do anything about it and they're neutral, but yet you look at their campaign coffers and they're receiving campaign contributions from these green energy companies through their lobbyists. Well, you tell me who's being influenced and how they're being influenced. And is that neutral? Because I believe that the only thing that changes a man's principles is money. And when you start supplying the money,
power.
Yeah, you're being influenced, whether you want to admit it or whether you want to. And I made the comment at one of the news broadcasts. We're tired of being taken advantage of. Quit treating us like we're ignorant.
Yeah.
We're out here trying to raise our families. We're out here trying to make a living, build the American dream for ourselves. And so it's time that Jim Shaw gets elected. It's time that we put people in place to represent us the way that we want to be represented.
And that we constitutionally deserve to be represented.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So when they say they come to you and your elected officials, these elected officials, like Kevin Wallace say, well, that's not my bag. That's personal property rights. It damn well is your bag. It is. That's your whole job, is to protect my property rights, to protect my rights, to protect everybody's right to property. So when they say that again, I hope you will just turn around and go, no, you're completely off base. And that's why you need to be out, because you have no idea what your job is.
Well, and the thing is, and this is what I've said, it does not make any difference. And this is how I'll just share this story. And I know we're running out of time here, but it doesn't make any difference what the elected official's personal stance is on it. If the majority of the people and their constituents don't want something, then that's where they need to be standing. That's what, irregardless of what they believe or what they want. That's not what they're there for. And so we've lost sight of that. And like I said before, our government, and it used to be, we all knew the feds, like you said a while ago, we all knew the feds was a problem. And so, but now it's all the way down into our cities. This model, this business model of taking taxpayers' dollars and subsidizing public or private entities, it's all the way down into our cities. And so us as citizens better be aware and be involved. Find people like Jim and Dana here that want to, and they understand the task. And believe me, I tried to talk them out of it. I did.
He tried really hard.
So did Robbie.
Yeah. But, kind of circling back to what we were talking about a minute ago, is just people maybe being cautious and reserved and maybe not wanting to step forward and get involved. I mean, if you can have a moment where you do step out in faith and obedience, you will find people around you that will be such a blessing to you. I mean, these two have been such a blessing to Dana and me over the last few weeks and months. You will be immensely blessed with the community that you get involved with. So I hope that's an encouragement.
And the people in the groups have been awesome to me.
Yes.
And it's been great.
Yep.
An unfortunate situation, but it's been so nice to meet everyone and see how everybody's coming together.
I know it is kind of sad, isn't it? It kind of takes an emergency to get us all together, but it's hard when you live on land. I mean, it's not like you can just go next door for sugar, I mean.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I so appreciate Julia says this morning, it's not to protect the majority, it's to protect the individual. Instead, government is the thief. And I'm going to say we have allowed government to become the thief. And it's time for us now. Now it's time for us to say, guess what? We understand what's going on now, and it's going to have to stop, and we're going to make you stop it if you're not going to do it voluntarily. So, Jim and Dana, thank you so much for being with us today. And thank you so much for stepping up and deciding that you want to step out in faith and be able to speak out for our rights.
Yes.
So God bless you for that. And Jeff and Robbie, two of my most favorite people in the world. Thank you for all that you do. And I know it's been a frustration, and I know, but thank you for sticking in there with it. And thank you for doing what you do and encouraging other people. And, God bless you and love you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Mike.
Well, I do want to keep it, Jim, I do want to have you on again at some other points when we start bringing on candidates. So I'll get back with you on that. And Jeff and Robbie, please keep us up, on what's going. I took them out and then brought them back in somehow. Don't know what I was doing there. But keep up with us on that, please, and let us know what's going on.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
guys.
you.
Take care. Have a wonderful weekend, and thanks for being with us.
You bet.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. I have no idea. I made myself big, and I made everybody else little. I don't even know what I was doing.
I can
Okay,
fix
there. All right, back to being
Wow.
normal.
Can you believe that, Jenny? I mean, the deception, the lies. Oh my God.
Well, I do want to point out.
Wow.
I do want to point this out. Notice that in this point in time, we didn't even talk about the energy itself. We talked about what was going on. And if these people are going to be that deceptive, how do you think that that the energy itself is not deceptive if these people have to be deceptive to get other people to buy into it?
Yeah. Well, you and I, we've said it 100 times. No one is coming to save us. We have to do this together, as a community, and at the lowest government level, people like Jim getting that seat. That is where the change will happen. That is where the accountability, the transparency, someone like that can just blow this whole thing wide open, with credibility on a larger stage. But it comes from that community itself, from those people, like Robbie and Jeff, that stand up, create, something here. And it just, hopefully it snowballs into something much larger and just really starts letting the public know at grand levels just how bad, how deceptive, and even like Jeff said, how evil, this is. Because it truly is. It really is.
Well, I think the wonderful thing about having them on, more than anything, people need role models.
Yeah.
Because really, honestly, we've been told for so long that we're helpless and we have to have government help. And we've been told that in a myriad of different ways. They've taken over our retirement. They've taken over our health care. They've taken over the education of our children. Yeah. So we've just been told that we're useless eaters, basically, since we let them take, all of our personal, individual things that we should be doing ourselves. We've let the government take all of these over, and we've got to start realizing we did this to ourselves. The only way to get out of it is to say, okay, we're done. We're scrubbing you from, we're getting rid of you. We're taking our shackles off, and we're going to do what we need to do to take our lives back over. And this is the way that we're going to do it. It's at the local level, individually doing that. And
personal
these guys are the best role models for doing that.
Yeah. Just take personal responsibility for yourself, your community, and things will happen. It's when we just let the government do it all. I mean, we don't even want to get started. We'll be here another 2 hours.
Yeah, and we probably want to wrap up because it is Friday, and we've had a huge thank you so much for all the viewers that have been on this morning.
Yeah.
And it makes me happy and it gratifies me to see all of the people on, because I do believe that that means that people are getting wise to this stuff, that people are, I mean, we've talked about electric vehicles so many times on this program. I think people are finally waking up and going, well, wait a minute. I think we're going to be the ones that are going to be at the brunt of this. It's not going to help us. It's going to end up hurting us. And I think if people will just pay attention, look at these role models that they've seen today, and get out there and do what they can for themselves, I think we've got a shot at it. I really do.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
All right. Well, it's always wonderful to be on with you as usual. And I hope you have a phenomenal weekend. We're going to have some rain. And so my husband is praising God for the possibility of rain, since he has planted the pasture and we have yet to get some watering in going on. So excited about that. Okay. So next week, let me go over this really quickly. On the 24th, we're going to have Sandra on. She has a donkey dairy here in Luther and is friends with Jeff and Robbie as well, and the Shaws. So, but she's going to talk about humanure and biosolids and what's going on with that and how that's going to affect all kinds of people and how. And then on the 26th, which is going to be next Friday, we have some more state election board information. And I will say I'm meeting with my attorney on Sunday, and I'll probably have some more information on that coming up next week that we're going to talk about. But the state election board is apparently monitoring social media for misinformation. And I think it's a really interesting topic that needs to be brought out into the sunlight, and we need to have a discussion about that. So if you're interested in that, make sure that you tune in next week. We've got a couple of great shows coming up. So if you want to donate, don't forget to donate. You can go to our Facebook page, rope2.org. We've got a nice donation page. You can sign up with Patreon. All you need to do is go to Patreon and type in Reclaim Oklahoma Parent Empowerment, and you will find us. Anything else that I've missed?
No, that's it. Well, thank God for the McCommas, and you know what? We should have got Jim's website to plug that. Just
hold on, they're still on. I'll pull them back on.
Yeah, pull them back in. You need to give us your website and where people can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to go to shawforok.com, that's SHAWFOROK.com. Also have a Facebook page. You can find me on there, Jim Shaw for State Representative 2024. But yes, please do go to the website, reach out. Would love to speak to each and every one of you. Thank you, guys.
And we're getting signs here pretty quick. So if you want a sign to put in your yard, reach out, contact us, and we will get those signs to you and spread the word that.
Well, you have two different signs. You have signs for Jim, and you have signs for no wind turbines, Lincoln County.
Right.
So get those. All right, everybody, you have a great weekend coming up, and we thank you again for joining us so much, and we will see you again next week. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.